Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. And now, before you were on my show, you were an amateur. Now we can officially call you a IFBB Wellness Pro athlete. So how does that sound?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's because I think you actually called it. I mean, if I remember correctly, you said you weren't going to get it this year, and you absolutely did. Does it feel kind of unreal?
Um, yes and no. It's like sometimes I like sit back and I look at like stage photos and stage videos and looking at my physique, that feels unreal. But like,
Hmm.
attaining my goals, not so much because it's like I already told you, like I called it. I'm like, if I want something, I'm gonna work for it and I'm gonna get it. The same way I told you, I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna convince Luke to let me compete anyways. And we did it. So, and I was like, he's gonna trust me and we're gonna get exactly what we came for. And yeah, so that doesn't really shock me, but it's like when I look back and I like actually look at the work that I did, I'm like, I don't even look the same as I did last year, like two completely different physiques. So like that blows my mind.
Yeah. How did you convince him to let you compete? Like, how did the conversation go?
It was, I don't know, you know how like I run my mouth a lot.
No.
so, so what I did was it's like I kept texting him throughout my training, like on weekends, because I didn't have my phone. Like for most of officer candidate school, it's kind of like boot camp. So like
Hmm.
you don't have your phone, you don't have any communications. I couldn't do any check-ins. He couldn't see my physique. So I'm like, I'm just gonna bombard him with a whole lot of words, and maybe he'll
Hmm.
just bypass it. But if Luke wasn't comfortable with where I was at, he wouldn't have put me on stage anyway. So let's start with that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
all I did was what come August 12th after graduation, as soon as I stepped off of Brown Field, like I'm heading to breakfast and I'm like, I'm done. I'm eating breakfast now. I will send you check-ins tomorrow morning. And he said, we'll base our conversation off of that. I ended up looking a lot better than I thought I would because I bulked to like what 160, and I've never seen
Hmm.
160 on me a day in my life. But I bulked to 160, dirty bulk, and I just put on as much fat as I could because for military training, it's like you need like the dirtiest type of bulk you can because you just lose weight. Like
Hmm. Hmm.
within 6 weeks, I lost 20 pounds, and I
Wow.
went from what 23% body fat to 14.
That's crazy.
That's
Wow.
crazy. That's crazy. But I looked good. Like the only thing I was missing was my glutes, which is even crazier about this prep. Like my glutes were gone, gone. There was no such thing as a glute on me. And I was like, it's okay. Like, we'll just do 3 leg days a week. Like, I have nothing going on. I'm a senior. Like, they're not stressing me out as much. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't have to show up to training events and everything else. So he was like, all right, I'll sign off. But what really got him, I think, is the fact that I was like, okay, for nationals, I don't have to travel more than 4 hours, so I can drive.
Hmm.
I know the area, so I'm not going to be stressed out. I know the promoters, I know the judges, I know everything else. So it's like I'm going to just feel comfortable. I'm going to feel at home. And
Hmm.
for me, like stress levels are always high. So like, that's sounding a little bit better to him. And I'm like, oh, I don't have a lot on my plate, like school wise. Like, I'm in my senior year. I really don't care. I'm just
Yeah.
finishing. Although I did finish strong, but like I'm just finishing. And before I knew it, he was like, all right, let's get in prep and see how this goes. But
Hmm.
he never said like, just no, you're not stepping on stage. I was kind of like, ah, I'm waiting for him to give me that look. And I know it when he posts me on his page.
That
Whenever he posts my physique on his page, I'm like, oh, I can compete this year.
Yeah, because he knows you're gonna get there. If otherwise, you wouldn't post it, right? That's
Oh, a
basically.
thousand percent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thousand
I
percent.
get it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, you had a very eventful year. So how long was the prep basically from the moment you started to the show? Was it a full?
Technically, what, 16 weeks?
Okay, so 16
Because
weeks.
like
That's a
we had
good
two
good
peak
prep.
weeks back to back. So it was 16 weeks. But for me, it's like with my genetics, like I don't need more than that because my
Yeah.
body just gets with the program.
Yeah, I thought last time we talked, you did a prep that was pretty like short, and you still like did pretty well in the show. And so, yeah, I mean, with 16 weeks, I think you're able to like do everything you need, and plus be able to, bring out all the necessary fibers and bring up whatever muscles you need to bring up and then some. So that's plenty of time, I think.
Oh, it was more than enough time because the
Yeah.
first prep that I had with Luke, because we ended up switching coaches like for that entire peak in week and everything else. It was
Hmm.
such a shit show. Um, but thank Luke for like taking me on. We had basically 5 weeks to make the package that we put on stage last
Hmm.
year. And what's even crazier is the only reason I could even compete at nationals this week was because I placed third at the Olympia Amateur last year on a 5 week
Hmm.
prep. That's
Got it.
crazy.
Yeah,
That is
yeah, that,
actually
that that's
crazy.
wild. Yeah, let me I was gonna actually let me see here. I was gonna pull up some of these pictures. Uh, well, while I'm doing this, tell me how the prep itself actually went. Like just throughout the process, was it an easy prep? Did you have any struggles or anything like that? How was it?
I think this was probably the easiest prep I've ever done. Mind you, I've only been bodybuilding for what, 3 years? And
Hmm.
I've done three preps basically every year at the end of the year. So right before Christmas, I'm like, I'm gonna compete. And I do that every year. It was really smooth. Like I actually had to like push my body a little bit more because it was so comfortable. I'm like, no, you need to lose weight, sweetie. That's why I was texting Luke. Like I do our check-ins, and I'm like, Luke, I trust you, but I'm letting you know now, like we're not losing as quick as we should.
Hmm.
And I'm like, we have 16 weeks, we can push it. I'm like, I'm okay. Like we can push it. Cause last time, like obviously we had to do like some extreme measures of like 90 minutes of cardio, like 12 to 15,000 steps, like crazy stuff just to get me to get lean enough. But in the process of doing that, I ended up sacrificing muscle. This
Right.
time, not so much. Like my body got with the program. I wasn't hungry like at all during this prep. Like obviously I made myself hungry. Like my trick during cardio is I actually watch like food shows. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I
It
really
makes
do.
you hungry.
I have to like I have to get my it's kind of toxic. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the Marine in me, but like a prep doesn't work for me unless I have a little bit of toxicity. Like my cardio has to hit a certain point. My steps have to hit a certain point. Like, do you know how many times I walked around this living room and did 12,000 steps in this living room?
That's
From
wild.
that wall to that wall, literally just walking in circles, racetrack.
Yeah,
Crazy. There's a sauna right there.
I
I
mean,
sat in that sauna for
that that's commitment, like that's if you're gonna walk around your room like constantly, like it doesn't get more of a commitment than that. I mean, some people have trouble, you know, doing cardio like in the best of circumstances and going to the gym and everything. It's like to do it in your room is wild.
there's a bike right there too. Like I woke up every day and I'm like, your only existence is bodybuilding. Cause like I was just I don't know, like some people could see what I could see. They're like,
Hmm.
okay, you were 2 spots away from your pro card. Like, you may get close, but like, because, some people put you in the box and they say, like, oh, well,
Right.
I took 10 years or I took 8 years. I was like, I don't have that type of time. I have to serve this country. So I need it now.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. And I want it now. So I'm going to get it now.
Yeah. That's
And I just kept working at it.
That's interesting. I just had the girl on today, a couple of days ago, and that's one of the things we were talking about is, we're talking about how like people sometimes will go to nationals and they will go over and over and over and over again and just keep competing until they eventually get it. So what happens is people start thinking that that's the route to take, right? Like you have to compete a bunch of times to win the pro card. Like it's impossible to win your first time. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, because I don't think the judges will hold you back if your physique is at that point, like that you're ready for the pros, and you're proof of that. I mean, I think if your physique is at the point where you can go pro, they'll let you go pro. I think a lot of times for those people that competed many years, maybe their physique just wasn't at that level yet, but if you're already coming into, into the show at a high level, I mean, what's the point of holding you back? I mean, there's no benefit to that, for them. So I think judges make the right decisions, and I think they made it with you for sure. I was let me take a look here.
You
So
find the
this,
photos?
yeah, I just pulled up your Instagram. So this is you and Luke here.
Yep, that's the legend.
Let me see here. Let me max if we can actually figure out how to do that. That would be fantastic. Oh my goodness, max. Okay, I guess you can't. I guess this is as big as I can get it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But can you see it clearly here?
Yeah, I can see it clearly. So,
Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool. And then I bet he was super excited for you.
oh, he was like, there's a video of me and Luke actually of like me coming off the stage, and it's like you can hear me screaming. I was like, "We did it!" He was like, "You did it!" I was like, "No, we did it!" And like, I'm just going at him like, man, like we accomplished like pretty much the impossible. We're going off
Hmm.
of me not training from what, January until August because I was preparing for officer candidate school. You're going off of me having a knee injury for like more than 7 years of my life. Like I've just
Hmm.
had a bad left knee. And me like fearing that like you can see that on stage, but somehow us making me proportional as possible anyway.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, just the conditions we're under, like, I still had to graduate, I still had to commission, I still had ROTC responsibilities. I remember like emailing Luke and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I can't get out of this. Midway throughout prep, it was what, October 13th to 15th, I had to go and do a training exercise, where we go out in the wilderness, compasses and
Hmm. Hmm.
all this extra stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and I just remember me out in the middle, like the dedication in my life, just unmatched. I was literally sitting out there, meal prep. Everyone else has their MREs, meals ready to eat. Here's me, glass containers in the middle of the wilderness, just sitting there.
That's
And my captain comes up to me and she's like, Rains, that doesn't look like an MRE. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm not sacrificing this pro card. I said I would show up. I'm here. And I was like,
that's
I'm gonna eat whatever.
that's taking bodybuilding to the next level when you're like
Literally, like
in
I'm
the
sitting out
woods.
there like crisscross applesauce, glass container in my lap. I'm like, I'm not sacrificing it for anything. Our units like Thanksgiving, like we hold a Thanksgiving like for our military unit. I'm sitting, I'm like, I'll even bring the apple pie for y'all. I'm just not gonna eat it. So
Yeah.
here you see is me with this like apple pie bigger than like this. I'm coming in, and then you just see my little glass container sitting on the top, my little Brussels sprouts on the right, my chicken on the left. And I'm like, I'll sit down and eat with y'all, but this is all I can have. And you just see like the active duty Marines, they're looking at me and they're like, man, like I've just like never seen someone so dedicated with like no prior service, but like just to be like so deep in it and have that type
Hmm.
of discipline. I, I'm like, I want the pro card.
Yeah.
I, I need to get it now. I'm gonna do what I need to do to get it now.
Yeah, that's I mean the dedication that it takes to be that way is like you said unmatched. I mean, it to that's such a hard thing to do because you have an opportunity to basically check out, right? Like you have all the excuses in the world that if you wanted to use them, you could. It's like it is difficult to do all that and compete and be in prep. So no one would have blamed you for it, but the willpower it takes to actually go through with it and then, be rewarded for all that hard work is amazing. It's an incredible thing. I know when you messaged me and that you got your pro card. I actually already knew because I was keeping up with you on your Instagram, but I was super excited for you when I saw that. That's incredible. That's an incredible, thing to accomplish. So
I appreciate it. I don't know if
yeah.
you see, but actually there's a post like right before this one of me with my
Mhm.
IFBB Pro jacket on. So at the
Oh,
same
this one
time,
right
yes.
here.
So at the same time that I had basically had the call with you, and I'm like, I'm gonna go pro. And everyone probably thought I was delusional, but like I was like, I'm gonna go pro. I bought that jacket at the Olympia Amateur. I bought it before the Olympic
before.
amateur. I was like, if it doesn't happen now, it's happening next year.
Mm-hmm.
And here's me like putting it on immediately after nationals. I'm like, skip manifestation. I just trusted God like in this entire process. I'm like, I'll do the work, God, I'll let you handle the rest. And like
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
all
Yeah.
came.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought it like a really good package too. It was like undeniable. Really, I was gonna ask you, this picture, was this taken right when they would announced you, getting your
That's when
card?
they knew. So I don't know if you saw, did you watch all of nationals or
I
no?
didn't. No, I didn't get a chance to,
Okay,
unfortunately. Hmm.
no worries. So what happened? I was stressed. This is why you see me crying in this photo. I was stressed out. So I knew I had made a pro physique, but there's nothing like getting that validation of being in the
Sure.
red box or
Yeah.
near the red box,
Yeah.
on the right hand side of the red box, not the left hand side.
Yeah.
And I love the judges. When I tell you they had my blood pressure high, I was sitting there. I'm like, okay, I was first like basically splitting center, and then they moved me to the right. I was like, okay, it's looking like a second place finish. I'm like, I'm proud of that. We're good with that. And last second, I hear Tyler say, number 87, switch, switch, switch. I was like, switch. Oh, I was so distraught. I was like, I swear we worked hard enough. I was like, did we? Then I'm sitting there like, I'm not spiraling, but I'm like, did you hit your step count? Did you like you hit every bit of cardio? Didn't you did you do everything you're supposed to do? Did you have all your water? And he moved me to like third right before prejudging and then took us all off stage.
Hmm.
So I had to wait 5 hours with that in my head because that's exactly what happened to me. Like
That's
my
wild.
first show ever competing, like I ended up placing third. I didn't think I was gonna place third, but then when I look back at the photos after being like just first getting this part, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
And then like I missed my pro card by what 2 spots last year, placed third, and I was like, this is not gonna be another third place finish. I was like, this is gonna be my villain arc. I promise you. Like I was like, this is going to be my villain arc. So I was like, no, just trust it. I was like, maybe they just wanted to see a different angle of me. I started coming up with any reason possible other than third place. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let it get to me. So I turned off my phone. I literally just went radio silent, and this is me just jittery all day, trying to get steps in. I literally went from 129 that morning, 5 hours passed. I was 127 by finals, 127 pounds.
Mm.
That's how bad the stress hit me. And I'm
So
like,
you
girl,
lost a couple of pounds just from that.
literally, I was like, eat a rice cake, get it
That's
together.
wild.
But yeah, no, like by the time finals came through, they had called fifth place, fourth place, and I'm sitting there before this crying photo, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, God, I better not hear 80 nothing, because my number was 87, and I'm like, I don't think any other girl in the lineup had like an 80
Like,
number except for fourth place,
hmm.
and I was like, God, I was like, I just don't want to hear 87. Please don't say 87. They said 78,
Hmm.
and I almost thought I heard 87, but
Right.
then it clicked.
I was gonna say you probably were like, what, 78, 8, like your mind probably
My
twisted it
brain,
up in
I
that
was, oh
moment.
my God. And then I didn't have hardly any water. Like on show day, I had coffee. Like I was
Hmm.
finishing like a 20-ounce coffee from prejudging the final. So I'm walking around like delusional for real.
Hmm.
They call me for second place. I just break down. Like I just cry. I'm like, I can't
Yeah.
even hold it in because it's just been such a long year and I've worked so hard at it. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I know I can make it happen, but it's like to see it all come together and know that I still wasn't done. Like literally a week after this, I had to graduate and
Mm.
commission, and I cried there too because I'm like, man, it's just been a long 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, Walt actually didn't even send this to me. He just posted it and tagged me, and I'm like, when did you take this? So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a nice it's a nice picture. That kind of really, like I said, and like you just mentioned, it really kind of shows the accumulation, coming to this one point, like the tip of the spear, like of everything that you've done and worked for coming to fruition, in this one moment. Like it's a really good picture. So yeah, I think that's pretty awesome.
I love that one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a nice picture. And then I mean you have quite a few, of course,
Yeah.
because if you win your pro card, you're definitely posting a few pictures. But yeah, I mean it's an amazing thing. So you said your prep went pretty smooth and
Oh,
everything
so
went
smooth.
well. Um, so you win your pro card. Did you celebrate? How did you
I
celebrate?
did. I don't know. I don't think I posted it on there. I think I posted it on there. I went to this place called Black Tap
Mhm.
and I had a craft burger. But what I did, I was smart this time. You remember how last time I told you I went into a coma,
Like a food coma?
a carb coma? I was like, that's not happening this time. I was like, we're in the game this time. So what I did was I honestly memorized the entire menu over the course of prep. I knew what I
Mhm.
wanted without looking at the menu. That's probably every competitor ever. And when she came up to me, I was like, okay, meet me here. You're going to bring out everything I say at once. Because if I have one thing in front of me, I'm just going to eat at that and I'm not going to experience anything else.
Right, right,
So what
right.
I did was I had all the appetizers come out, mozzarella sticks, guacamole and chips, queso and chips, wings, ribs, and I had her lay that out. And then I had my craft burger and sweet potato fries. And then I ended the night with a very big craft shake.
So you had a whole plan. You had a setup.
Oh,
You had
set
you
up.
had you had a prep for the food,
I was
not just
drinking
for
a
the
gallon in the car on the way over. I was like, y'all, this is the one time today I'm not driving. I was like, somebody drive so I can drink my water.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just sitting there like you think you think the same way that people put liquor back. Like I'm just sitting there like
Yeah.
gallon to the ceiling. I'm like, let's get ready. Like offer me to eat.
That's
But
hilarious.
my friends beat into it because like they understand prep and they definitely understand like my constrictions, but sometimes they can't wrap their head around like me having to say no to every option that they give me. So they're
Sure.
like, oh, because they call me Reigns. They call me by my last name.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, can I give you this? Can you eat this? Oh, just take a bite of this. And I'm like, no, I can't have that.
Yeah.
But like this is like the one time that they could actually celebrate with me. And they're like, oh Nari, what do you want? We'll order this, we'll order that. I'm taking stuff off of people's plates. Like I literally just appetized. I
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
just 2 bites of this, 2 bites of that, 2 bites of that. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I can go to sleep.
How,
And
how,
I had the best sleep of my life.
that's awesome. How did your like rebound go? Did you gain a bunch of like water weight or anything like that, or it was
Oh,
pretty
I
pretty
always
good?
do. So
Mhm.
for me, I don't know if this is like a thing for other competitors, but the same way that like my body can get with the program to cut quickly, I can put on weight like no other. Like
Mm.
you saw how easy it was for me to get from like 40 to 160 before
Yeah,
OCS. Me post show that happens every time. Like my
yeah.
face immediately fills in, like my hands get a little bit chunky, my toes get a little bit
Mm.
chunky, and like obviously my midsection doesn't
Look
midsection the
look
way
the
it
same.
looks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
So
you've
I
been
get fluffy, I'm not gonna lie. And then it
yeah, I
evens
mean,
out a little bit and then it like kind of levels out, but it's like I gain so quickly,
yeah.
so quickly.
You've been, I mean, depriving yourself really for, like we could just say 16 weeks. I know it's progressive, but and then so like afterwards, your body just soaks everything up immediately, whatever you eat. Do you employ like any kind of controlled, or does Luke have you employ any kind of controlled like, rebound or anything like that? Or is it just you just eat whatever?
So he usually gives me like a 24 to 48 hour period, depending
Mm.
on like how much time I'm spending with family. Because obviously he doesn't want me to like continue on like
Of
prep
course.
restriction,
Yeah,
like not
of
spend time
course.
with my
Yeah,
family. So
sure.
he'll give me those periods, like if it's near Christmas, because it's always Christmas, he'll let me
Hmm.
have Christmas Day, he'll let me have Christmas Eve. And then like from there, he's like, okay, let's get back on plan. And we get back on plan. It's not as restricted, but it's still like it very much like mimics the prep diet, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Just more
yeah, yeah.
calories. Immediately after the show, we went back to 1400 and 1700 calories for off day and then training day. And then like, week to week, we start adding a little bit more calories to that to get me back to my maintenance. But I mean, even like with reverse, like my body just immediately goes back to like my maintenance, which is like
Sure.
usually 140 to 150. And I can see it like right now. Like I just was posting photos. I'm like, girl, you look like the starter prep already. But I think my body's still like leveling out. It's still taking its time. But because this prep wasn't as harsh, you didn't see me like blow up like last
Yeah,
year. Last year, I was like, oh, I felt malnourished. I'm not even gonna lie.
yeah,
I understand we had like extreme measures, but like I never want to do a prep like that again. Luke never wants to do a prep like that again. He never runs his protocol that way, but he understood like what we were trying to achieve in the time we had. So like
right.
unique circumstances, but I didn't blow up as much this year, but
You gain
I still
some.
blew up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's, I mean, having a controlled way to come back out of a show is like really, really important because a lot of times what I see, and kudos to you and Luke, because a lot of times what I see is people will just like go after the show and they'll just eat, they'll just go right back to just eating like their off season immediately. And that, I mean, you can gain, I mean, the guys, I don't know about the women, but the guys, I mean, can gain 20, 30, pounds of water. It's hard on your system. It's hard on your heart. I mean, and it's not, a lot, and then you gain a bunch of fat with it. It's not good. Nothing is good about that, and makes it that much harder for you to, come back to like a normal, normal level. So yeah, I definitely think having a controlled way of coming back is good. And I mean, you're gonna fill out because you're no longer restrictive anymore. So you're gonna fill out. That's just part
Right.
of it. But it's just how much you fill out and how you fill out is really what it comes down to. So that's great. So after the show, now you're a pro. What are your like did you talk to the judges? Did they recommend any kind of improvements? Because now you're at a different class of competitors. Now you're no longer competing with amateur girls. Now you're going to be competing with the pros. So did they say anything? Did you have a moment to check with them or no?
I haven't had a moment
Okay.
with everything that I've had. Like
Sure.
literally, I turned around, got off stage. I'm like, I still have life things going on. I don't even have time to like, as soon
Yeah.
as it was done, like my captain called me. He was like, all right, come in the office tomorrow. And I'm like, sorry, I just stepped off stage. Okay. So like literally went into that week. I'm pretty sure Luke went ahead and got that feedback already.
Yeah.
Um, because he's already like, okay, I'll talk to you in a week. Let me handle these other competitors and we'll get to work. Um, but from what I can see already,
Hmm.
like yes, everyone's happy to become a pro, but I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, but you're back at ground zero
Hmm.
and you have to
Right.
build back up again. And for me, I know that my glutes are going to have to come up 1,000%. I need better tie-ins. I think I can be even leaner than I was. Like I definitely could get leaner. And from what I could see, like I try to hide them as much as I can, but I may have to stop like upper body completely because
Hmm.
my delts they're delting, you
Coming
know.
in. They're
And
Delton.
for
Yeah.
wellness, the delts can't be looking like bikini.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's from what I can see. I'll definitely like get back with Luke after the
Right.
holidays and like see like what they're saying. But typically when I look at my photos and I go back to their feedback, it's the exact same. And like I feel
Yeah.
like as a competitor, like you should know your weak areas. You shouldn't need someone else to like point everything out for you. You should be
Right.
tracking on most of like what you need to work on.
Right. And it shouldn't be like you're right. You're absolutely right. It shouldn't be like a complete out of the blue surprise. Like if a judge tells you something and it's if it's a legitimate like thing that they're telling you, um, then like it shouldn't come out of the blue. You should kind of already have an idea that's what you need to work on. So yeah, I mean, well, you definitely have like you'll have your off season, you'll get to put on like a good muscle, good mass there, work on tie-ins, work on all that stuff, and then do you have and I know again you're very busy. I know you've got a lot going on, but did you just kind of even briefly think about like what you want to do with this pro card? Do you want to compete next year? If you do,
I
what were you thinking?
do not think it's feasible to
Hmm.
compete next year. In terms of like just pro debut and like how I like to step on stage, I even if I had the time, I probably wouldn't step on stage. Like I'd probably take at least 2 years off to build. Um, but it's more so because like now I do have to focus on my Marines. This was like my kind of me time before I crossed
Hmm.
that line. Now that I've crossed that line, I am second lieutenant. they're my entire world.
Mm.
And it's almost like being a parent. So I can't just say, oh, we'll
Yeah.
take Billy to the babysitter now. I'm like, that's it. So pro debut, I actually don't even know.
Yeah.
But I can say, at least for the next year, not
Yeah.
happening because
Yeah.
my body's going to change so much. Like, instead of 6 weeks of that, like draining training, I'm going through 6 months.
Hmm.
And I need to see how my body adapts to that. I'm going to be doing crazy amounts of cardio. I'm going to need to eat a lot more than like what I'm eating now, even just to maintain like 140, 150. So it's like, I don't even know how my physique's going to look at the end of the basic
Yeah.
school. And just in case like we have to start completely over, I wouldn't even think about doing a pro debut until probably until 2025. If
Right.
it's feasible for the end of 2024, maybe we'll see, but there are no promises.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely get what you're talking about. I mean, you've got a lot, like I said, you've got a lot going on. This I preface that question by saying that. But um I don't think as long as you keep training, like I don't see you like starting completely over. So you'll probably, pick up pretty quick and get to a level where you feel comfortable pretty quick. But you will, I mean, you obviously will have to build because now, like you said, you're in a class of competitors that are level up, So, um, I was thinking, like, what do you think about like wellness now in the IFBB? Do you like the direction that everything is going? You like who's winning, like the placements in the Olympia? Um, what do you think about it in general?
I think I like where it's going
Hmm.
now. It's nice to see some fresh faces up there.
Hmm.
Um, I think for smaller competitors like myself, if you see like consistent, like, oh, just Fran, just Fran, just Fran, just Isa, just Isa, just Isa, and all the way down the line, you think like, oh, that I could never be that top
Hmm.
five.
Yeah.
But to see some new faces up there, that gives some hope.
Hmm.
Definitely gives some
Yeah.
hope. But I think where the division's going,
It's good.
it's going exactly where it needs to go. And I think what we see in the Olympia now is aligning more with what Tyler would like to see.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen like his videos that he
I
recently
have,
placed.
yeah, I have. I didn't listen through the entire, banter of his videos, but I did like off and on the clips and things like that. Yeah, so he's been very vocal about like what they're looking for. Yeah.
I think with the changes that we've been seeing, we see more of like what he's looking for, but I think it's still going to take some time to kind of like get people to start looking like that image.
Hmm.
And I at least know for me, like I'm on that path. I have a lot of room to grow with my legs, but I think I'm like on the right path to be like right up that alley that he wants us to be in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if I remember correctly, he made a line in the sand with regard to like leg size. And because part of the issue that was coming up is like girls were coming in with, and they weren't placing well, but they were coming in with like really bodybuilder heavy legs.
Yeah.
And so like he he was trying to make it clear like what wellness should look like. Yes, there's a focus on legs, but it's not quite like that. And so I think it was good for him to do that because I think there was a real confusion with some of the competitors,
Yeah.
because they're coming in and they're like, well, I have great legs. Why am I not placing? Well, it's not just about the size of your legs. It's like there's more involved. So yeah.
I think we even saw some of that at nationals.
Hmm.
I hate to say it, but when you have so many crossing from other divisions and then they're wondering why they get certain placings, it's like you have to be aware that you're not only crossing, that you're trying to make something work in a division that is not that division.
Hmm.
And for me, it's like me placing second. It's like I knew I was like, we're going to be a second place finish today.
Right.
Why? Because I didn't have as much time as Miss First Place, which was Cole
Hmm.
Salazar. And I I'm going into that tracking that, and I feel like more competitors like it takes a certain level of maturity to be able to like see that,
Hmm.
so you
Yeah.
don't sit there and be like, oh well, why did I place this and I don't understand, and having like a bad attitude about it. you be mature, have a conversation with yourself, have a conversation with the judges, have a conversation with your coach. And
Yeah.
if this is not just a one-on-one conversation that you're having with your coach, maybe you need a new coach,
Yeah.
because these
Yeah.
are conversations I have with Luke all the time. I stepped off stage. I was like, how are we looking? How are we placing? Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking second. I'm like, are we on the same page? Like, do you see what I see? And we hit there every single time.
Yeah. I think some of the worst, well, first of all, I like to say, like, I think you and Luke have a really good relationship and it seems to be working very well. I would believe I even felt that way when we talked. It's just, it was, you have good energy, between the two of you. And I think that's so hard to come by. That's why you see a lot of people switching coaches and so forth. Is just, you really want to try to find that team, connection. And so that's one thing. And the other thing I was going to say is it's important that your coach is realistic with you and doesn't just say things, because sometimes you'll see coaches, competitors are extremely biased, which, I understand it's your athlete, but you have to kind of, if your athlete is not good enough to, win or place first or whatever, you have to be honest with them and say, you weren't good enough this time because of this, and get them to the point where they are good enough. You can't tell them, oh, you should have won when they really, you know, probably shouldn't have, and I think that's not a good coach where you like just try to try to put like certain views into your athlete that aren't real. They're not true. Like, and it's, that's kind of like the where I'm coming from. So it sounds like you and Luke are on the same page with regard to that. So if like you thought you were second and he's like, yeah, you were probably second, and so that's clear and you guys are working synergistically, to make that happen. So I think that's a very cool thing. So
For sure. I think in this sport, you see, honestly, too many pros like feeding into that same thing. Like, just because you go pro does not automatically make you qualified to go and one-to-one coach someone. I'm
mhm.
so tired of seeing that.
Yeah.
Like, I have so many people reach out to me and they're like, oh, can you train me? Da, da, da. I'm like, I have no certifications other than I'm a United States Marine that's been training for what, 8 years of my life. I've been training since I was 13 years old. So those are my only certifications. I can give you foundational knowledge at best
Yeah.
because there's just some knowledge that everyone knows. But like,
Right.
I'm not qualified to give you a meal plan. I'm not qualified to set life goals with you. I'm not qualified to make you a workout plan. I'm not qualified in any of that. So just because I have another tack to my name does not say that, like, oh, I can go and prep someone for a show.
Right. Right.
And then, I mean, like, even aside from that, you don't see enough coaches saying no,
Yeah.
because for most of my prep, Luke said no. Luke said, sorry, not my name going on that stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, he was like, I'm not putting it on stage. I'm not putting a bad package on stage just because you want to step on stage.
Right.
What show
Right.
do you want to do? And let me approve it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, okay. I have to earn your approval. That's when you hear me say, like, I know I'm on the right track when he posts
Right.
me. That's me getting that approval that's like, okay. Not that he only posts like when I look good, because he posts me in my off season, on
Right.
season. Let's not get it, let's not get it twisted there.
That's too funny.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's just like, I know, like, in a prep season, when he's like, all right, we're making some waves. Let me put this out there so then I can make some waves too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, that's when I know. And I just
Yeah.
think too many coaches in this sport, like, they're not actual coaches. Because
Yeah.
if they were real coaches, they would be like Luke, and they're not.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like great athletes aren't always like great coaches. And I'm not necessarily saying that like the people that you're talking about great athletes, but just because you're a pro, just because you've made it there, like doesn't make you a coach and doesn't make you a good coach. It's because, like being an athlete and coaching are two separate jobs. They're two separate things. So it's like, sometimes you'll see like football coaches that never played football, but incredible coaches, right? Or like sometimes you'll see people like for example, Chris Aceto. I don't know if you're aware of who he is, but he's a big time coach and trainer. And he's never, he's competed, but he's never been like any high up IBB pro or anything like that. But yep, he's an incredible coach. So it's like, you don't like the two and two are not like mutually exclusive, or you need both of them. You can be, someone that never stepped on an IFBB pro stage, but knows how to get people in shape, and vice versa. Like you were talking about, you can be somebody who's, an Olympia champ. That doesn't mean you know how to get somebody in shape, and I think people get confused. That's why you're probably getting those messages. They're like, hey, she got on stage and she did great. And so she probably can get me to do great too. And, like you said, yourself, hey, I can give you foundational knowledge. I can give you some pointers. But if you want to get on stage and win nationals or whatever, you need a real coach, you need somebody else. And it's like, I think it says a lot about you, making that clear, because a lot of people, like you said, wouldn't. They would just take the money and run with it. So
That's what I'm saying. Like, there are a lot of like compromising things in this sport. And it's like, for me, number one, my faith always has to come first. My morals have to come second.
yeah,
And most times those are intertwined. And it's like, I'm never just going to slight someone because I feel like I need to get more, like get a higher financial like stand. Like that doesn't make sense to me. I don't want to
right,
scam someone, ruin their life, ruin their health, and run them for their money if I know I'm not qualified to lead them. Like
yeah,
that makes no sense. And I just see so many people just taking people's money with all of these programs, booty programs, ab programs, any number of things. So then when people meet me, they're like, Barbie, what do you mean you don't do ab workouts? What do you mean that I'm like, they're made in the freaking kitchen. I don't know what to tell you.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
or they ask me about calves or anything else. Or my belts. I'm like, genetics.
yeah,
Like, I can't tell you anything else.
yeah, yeah.
Genetics.
Because it's like I found that people, I was talking to my wife about this, and like, and it's funny, like you'll just be out somewhere and somebody will just like come up and ask you questions or whatever, or in the gym, people ask you questions, and I don't have a problem with that. Of course, I'll answer, but it's like it's almost like they're looking for like a sexy answer. They're looking for something that's like cool and like, not like simple, like something that they've never heard before. And my answers are always like basic and, and consistent. And and that's what gets you results. And I could see their face change, like they get like slightly sad because I didn't tell them something that's like super extreme. And I'm like, it's like this is how you do it with consistency and correct diet and everything like that. That's how it's done. It's like you see all this sensational things on Instagram, but you have to understand, like that stuff is put out there to get views. It's not what those people that put that out there, they don't do that on a regular basis. And so, but anyways, yeah, that's kind of, I'm with you on that for sure.
That's what I'm saying. So like, I think my social media even struggles a little bit because I tell people all the time, I'm like, one, I'm not sharing my entire life with you. There's
Right.
some privacy I need.
Yes.
Two, consistency. You're not going to see me posting 90 different workouts. If I film a workout, it's the same workout I've been doing for the past 8 years.
Right.
The only thing I'm changing is if my coach tells me to do it. And then guess what? For another 8 years, it's staying the same. Meal plans. I'm not necessarily posting it, but like I eat the same thing every single day. One, like I don't want people copying like what I do and like in an unhealthy way, like, oh, she's doing this amount of calories and I do this and I follow whatever she's doing because they want that sexy answer of like, oh, I just do this thing. Oh, I
Yeah.
just do this trick. But there is
The
no
secret.
minor
Yeah.
trick. It is time,
Yeah.
literally time and consistency. And a lot of people don't think about that. So then they ask me like, oh, how do you do it? Like, oh, I can never be you. I can never accomplish the things you do. I'm like, no, you're just not willing to work hard enough for it.
Right, right. And a lot of times you're absolutely right. Not willing to work hard enough. And I would even say like not patient enough, not trusting the process. It's like how many times have I, like, and I'm sure you experience or you might experience the same thing where you're dieting and you're eating the right things. And like you might be losing a little bit, but you're not losing enough. Or you might be losing like at a certain place, but you're like, but another place where your body is not following, or like, you look like because you're in a deficit, maybe you're not as filled out. So you don't like, for me, that happens a lot because I'm on the bigger side, heavier guy, more muscular. It's like when I go into a deficit, my muscles feel like they're deflated. I always look flat, always look flat. And it like it can bother you mentally. So of course it's easy for me to be like, oh, well, I look flat, so let me eat some more and like get, fuller. But that's not, but I have to be consistent. And that's the thing. It's like people just aren't willing to be consistent. They aren't willing to be patient. They aren't willing to trust the process. And they a lot of times they'll just end up sabotaging themselves anyway. So, you know,
Just trying to cut corners, and
yeah,
there are no corners you can cut. So like they asked me how I did it. I'm like, I didn't cut corners. I did the work.
yeah, yeah.
I did the work.
100%. Everyone that they see that has a great physique did the work, whether they tell you that on their page, on their Instagram or not. That's how they got that physique. And it's like,
Exactly.
and you have to kind of, I get there's young people that don't really get that, but you have to educate yourself and understand. At some point, I realized, oh, like this is what really builds muscle. So, and then
So,
it
literally,
works.
someone pulled me the other day because sometimes I honestly go in the gym in sweats because like I just don't always want people to ask questions because I know it's gonna be the same line of questioning. Not that I don't want people to ask me questions. I love talking to people. Obviously, I love like talking in general.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like when people come up to me, they're like, "Oh, how do I get my legs to look like yours?" And
Yeah. It's
I ask them this singular question: Do you eat enough? And their answer is always no. I'm like, "Oh, well, you're not gonna grow then. You don't need to
yeah.
talk to me."
Right.
I
Right.
was like,
Step
"It's
one.
not.
Yeah.
Come talk to me when you're eating enough.
Yeah.
How much protein are you getting in a day? Oh, not enough.
Yeah.
Okay." But like it happens every time. Like I go in, they see my legs, and they're like, "Oh, how do I get my legs to look like yours?" I'm like, one, don't think this is just like, oh, I built my legs up to look like this. Like genetics wise, I've always had
Hmm.
just lower leg dominance, like
Right.
quads, calves. Like I've had stretch marks on my calves since I was like what 13.
Mhm.
What kid has that? And so I'm just like, some things are just genetics. When I'm like
Yeah.
growing wise, like I've been working out with football players, wrestlers, football coaches, wrestling like my entire life.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just been working.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want it, work at it. And then I asked them, I'm like, oh, how many times do you change your leg day? And they're like, oh, I've been doing this for X amount of days. I'm like, do it for 8 weeks and then
Yeah.
come talk to me.
Right.
Just do it for 8 weeks and then come talk to me.
100%. All those points that you just brought up, exactly. It's like they don't they and I get the same thing mostly about like just different other, usually not legs, but different parts of my body. People will ask like shoulders and things like that. And it'll be the same thing. It'll be like, well, what do you do for them? Like, do you like how long have you been training them? How do you train them? Like, do you eat enough? Do you, how's your protein intake? Like what? And it's like, and then what you find out is that they're literally doing nothing to facilitate what they're asking about. So I'm like, well, you can't do nothing and then expect the greatest results of all time. Like it's just impossible. Like it's like if you came to me and you said, "Hey, I'm taking in protein all the time. I'm training like a maniac, whatever the case may be." And then I'll say, "Okay, well, if that's the case, then let's try to dissect things and see where there's a mistake." But it's like,
Right.
but you can't come to me and be like, I'm not doing anything. How do I get my, show? I'm like, well, I mean, you gotta start with the basics then. That's just the way it goes. And consistency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For
For
sure.
sure, for sure. Well, hey, I was really, really excited to have you back on the show. It's always exciting to have people back on, like after they've like accomplished. There's been times where I like interviewed people, like in your case, and it's like, they're still like hungry and they're going for it and and then I'll interview them later and they're like accomplished what they were talking about, which is exactly what we're discussing now. So I'm really happy for you. Yeah. For
I
sure.
appreciate it. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way I'm not gonna come back. Like
Yeah.
I was like, we just talked like not too long ago. I was like, I
Yeah.
need to hit my guy up and let him know.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was like, didn't want to bother you because I was like, well, she just won, so she's probably like just she's probably got like friends. She's hanging out with them, family. People are happy. Like it's like party town, right now. So I was like, let me give her some time so to get through that, and plus it's the end of the year, so I wasn't sure like what your plans were like as far as going out of town and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I'm glad you were able to squeeze me in. It was a good time for sure.
Well, I
So
appreciate you for making time for me as well.
yeah,
I mean, if in the future you like want to check in after the basic
yeah,
school, I'm more than willing to reach back out
yeah,
so we can track
absolutely.
that too. And maybe after the pro debut.
Absolutely. I think that's a good plan. Whether we do it at the pro debut or whether we do it beforehand, I think that's a good idea. Hey, I'll be, as always, I try to end like with, if anybody wanted to reach out with you to you for like more podcasts or other things, maybe they just want to ask some basic questions. What would be the best way for them to contact you?
Actually, everything's attached to my Instagram.
Okay.
So if
Awesome.
they go to Nari the Barbie with a little underscore, and then they click in my profile, my email is there if they want to reach out to me email wise. Because I'm not always accessible, like DM wise, that stuff gets drowned out. So if it's like something like you need my attention like that day, email me. It is attached to that profile. It's rainsYY@gmail.com. And yeah, if
Awesome.
not, they can reach out through the Instagram DMs. I do answer those just a lot slower than I do my email.
For
So
sure. Awesome. And guys, I'm going to link everything at the bottom, so you can reach out to Nari much, faster and easier, like through the link. Like and subscribe if you like this video. And again, thank you so much. You have a great rest of the evening.
you too.
All
Happy
right. Take
holidays.
care. Bye bye.